Official statement from President Yoon's legal team. In response to the arrest warrant issued against President Yoon Suk-yeol, his legal team has released an official statement. Previously, attorney Seok Dong-hyun shared his personal views on Facebook. Today, the legal representatives have formally issued a document titled Official Statement from President Yoon's legal team. It begins with the words, "This day, we cry out loud, 是日也放声大哭." Justice has died and legal conscience has vanished. This phrase echoes the sentiment of anguish felt during Korea's colonial era, when the nation lost its sovereignty. The legal team expressed deep shock and disbelief at the actions of the judiciary, stating, "We had anticipated this outcome when the Western District Court of Seoul was chosen for this case. Even so, we hoped that the judiciary's final conscience would prevail. Alas, our worst fears have been realized. Disregard for justice and conscience." The statement emphasized that from the beginning, the judicial process was skewed. The Supreme Prosecutors Office's request for the warrant and its subsequent approval were seen as signs of a judiciary under undue influence. Despite this, President Yoon attended court proceedings, respecting the legal system and making every effort to explain the justification for the state of emergency. And his unavoidable decisions during a national crisis, the legal team criticized the arrest warrant's basis as absurd, highlighting that it claimed risk of evidence, destruction as the sole justification for detention. They questioned what evidence could possibly remain to be destroyed. From the 6 hours of martial law that were broadcast live, the prosecutors themselves acknowledged that substantial evidence had already been secured. They further noted that President Yoon, being suspended from his official duties, lacked the capacity to influence anyone involved in the case. Key figures related to the incident had already been indicted and detained, making the reasoning for evidence destruction unfounded. Public outrage and protests. The legal team highlighted the public's anger at this decision, with large-scale protests erupting nationwide. Over 100,000 citizens gathered outside the Western District Court of Seoul to denounce the actions of the judiciary and demand fairness. The protests turned violent following the late-night issuance of the warrant, leading to tragic clashes between protesters and law enforcement. The statement criticized the police for their heavy-handed response to peaceful protesters, contrasting this with their leniency toward unlawful demonstrations by certain organizations in the past. It called for restraint on all sides, urging protesters to remain peaceful while holding the judiciary and prosecutors accountable for their actions. Broader implications. The legal team accused the judiciary of bias and corruption, suggesting that judges were handpicked to deliver favorable rulings for certain political factions. They argued that this is not merely a legal issue, it is a systemic collapse of justice and democracy. The judiciary has been co-opted to serve partisan interests, undermining public trust in the rule of law. The statement further drew comparisons with opposition leader Lee Jae-myung, alleging that despite facing serious allegations, he avoided detention and proper investigation, highlighting double standards in the judicial process. A call for peaceful resistance. The statement concluded with a call for peaceful resistance, urging citizens to channel their anger into constructive actions. It warned against violence, which could undermine President Yoon's position further, and appealed to the global community to recognize the gravity of the situation in South Korea. It stated, "The judiciary and the Supreme Prosecutors Office bear full responsibility for the unfortunate clashes that have occurred. They must provide a reasonable explanation for the warrant issuance that can satisfy the public." Finally, the legal team affirmed its commitment to continue fighting through all legal avenues to restore justice, protect South Korea's democracy, and uphold the principles of freedom and fairness. The statement ended with a solemn pledge. We will never give up. The people of this nation will stand together, and history will remember this struggle as a righteous fight for justice and democracy. In response to the arrest warrant issued against President Yoon Suk-yeol, his legal team has released an official statement. Previously, attorney Seok Dong-hyun shared his personal views on Facebook. Today, the legal representatives have formally issued a document titled Official Statement from President Yoon's legal team. It expresses deep shock and disbelief at the actions of the judiciary and criticizes the arrest warrant's basis as absurd. Public outrage and protests have erupted, with over 100,000 citizens denouncing the judiciary. The statement accuses bias and corruption within the judiciary, highlighting double standards in the judicial process. It calls for peaceful resistance, emphasizing the fight for justice and democracy in South Korea. The legal team remains committed to upholding the principles of freedom and fairness. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by Lee's studio, Lee Ho-kun Broadcast. Subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to join us for more inspiring stories of resilience and change.